Hi, everybody. Welcome to another talk within the Nine Sided Circle. It is Sunday, October 25th today, and I'm one of your hosts, Noor Kyle, along with.
The other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yay! So, do you want to do our little YouTube spiel?
All right. So let me give you the YouTube spiel before we get started. Um, subscribe. Subscribe to our channel. We would love you to subscribe to our channel. It makes us happy when you subscribe. Um, and when you subscribe, hit the little notification bell so that you know every time we do something, no matter how meaningless.
What are you
Uh,
talking about? It's all meaningful.
it's all very meaningful, yes.
Very deep, very meaningful.
Um, So we would love it if you did that. And if you like what we have to say, hit the like button because we need the likes. We're
Yeah.
desperate for the likes. Nobody likes us. Our self esteem is being crushed by this. It's so sad. Um, and if you don't like us, hit the dislike button. We're happy with that too. Give us your feedback. We don't care if you dislike us. You just want to know you're out there
Mm.
and make comments.
Yeah,
We would
we
love to
love
hear
more
your
comments.
comments.
Yeah,
We're getting
yeah.
more and more comments lately, and we really do dig that. Um, so, yeah, do feel free. Now, we're almost done with our yearly retreat, so y'all have missed out on that, and it's terrible because we had such a good time. Maybe next year. There is that. We do this every Sunday, just about. You know, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they used to say. Um, and we also, and this is important, and you'll know why it's important come the end of this talk, we do private consultations, both Noor and I. So you get a choice between nice and not so nice.
Mm.
Um,
He's secretly nice and I'm secretly mean. That's
yeah,
how this works.
it's one of those things. But if you're interested, look at that email down below in the description, and you can email us for the particulars. I will tell you that we don't come cheap, but we come good. Our rates are $100 an hour for talking to either of us, $100 American. Um, and uh, I guarantee that we will change your life because if nothing else, you'll be $100 poorer when we're done with it.
True that, yes. But we absolutely do welcome new students right now. We
Yeah.
would love to work with new people. So if you've been on the fence for a while or you didn't realize that we do one-on-one sessions, yeah, we're letting you know now that we would love to have you.
And we will have other fun announcements in the near future.
Mhm. So with that said, we were actually going to discuss a relevant topic this evening, which is teachers. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, so, what do you want to tell us about that?
Um, teachers are a necessary evil. So, yeah, teachers are an interesting thing. There's an old saying, an old Sufi saying, he who does not have a teacher has Satan for a teacher. Why do you think that is? Why would
Hmm.
anybody say that?
What do you think, Nancy?
Well, I can quote you Idris Shah, but is he trustworthy?
No, of
Um,
course not.
what he said was that there are people who don't need teachers, but they're um, none of them are people who think they don't need teachers.
Well,
Hmm.
he happens to be correct in that, but that's not the meaning of the saying.
Well, I assume it's that anyone who doesn't have a teacher is kidding themselves and opening themselves to evil influences. Is how I would interpret it.
Yeah. Let me suggest that the actual meaning is that the one of the teacher's main jobs is to help you see when you are lying to yourself.
Mhm.
And remember, Shaitan is the father of lies.
Mhm.
So we all lie to ourselves. And then we all tell ourselves that we're not lying to ourselves, because if we told ourselves that we were lying to ourselves, what fun would that be? But we all lie to ourselves. And one of the teacher's main jobs is to go, hey, look at this. Is that really true? Is what you're thinking right now the actual fact, or are you just wallowing in your own ego? Sometimes they'll say it nicer. Sometimes they won't say it that nice. Oh my God.
Yay!
Mahipal just showed up.
Mahipal,
Mahipal.
welcome. We're
Yeah.
just getting started.
Yeah.
Hey.
I am totally excited.
So thank you for
Yeah,
joining us.
we have power outages happening, so here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will, if you come in and out, that's okay. We will understand.
Yeah. So I think probably the first thing about a teacher is they help you to not lie to yourself. They call you on your own bullshit. More than anything else that they do, they'll give you information. They will do all of this, but primarily a good teacher is going to go, do you think that idea just came from your ego? Or do you think that it came from your essence? Oh, you think it came from your essence? Why is that? Why would your essence think that? And then you're in the uncomfortable position of having to answer that question. So that's the meaning of he who does not have a teacher has Shaitan as a teacher, in my humble opinion. Because Shaitan is the father of lies, and nobody can lie to you like you. If I learn nothing else from my teachers, that is one of the lessons that I learned. Because I discovered that actually I'm pretty good at fooling myself.
Most of us are. I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much all of us are on some level.
But my teachers have been very good at not letting me do that. And it can be painful. And, like anything else where growth is involved, pain is a part of it. Thoughts on that before we move on?
Hmm. I mean, I've certainly had those painful experiences where I've been kind of caught in my, caught in my tracks where I thought I was doing the right thing and I realized that it was coming from a place um of ego and more focus on myself and my desires rather than what I needed out of the situation to grow. How about you, Cherie?
How about me? Hi,
First of
everyone.
all, hello. Welcome.
I was just thinking of situations where I thought I was doing the right thing as well, and allowed someone else to make a decision, and I went along with it, and it affected the person that we were talking about in a way that was deeply hurtful. And when I talked to that person who was hurt, she said, "Why didn't you just pick up the phone?" And I thought, exactly right. Why didn't I just pick up the phone and I make the decision for me versus letting someone else say, "Oh, she's probably doing this or this or this or this." But how would we know that anyway? And that was me just checking out and just letting it ride. And I'm thinking that was, at that time, it was a deeply cruel thing for that person to have experienced, because it felt like we didn't care. We didn't pick up the phone, and I should have picked up the phone. And I've never forgotten that. And I thought, any time where you are given that impulse that you need to do something to change or help someone, dive in and just check it out yourself versus waiting for someone else. So I learned about the responsibility of that. So that was a good teaching. And it was a person who is a teacher who did that to me. And I thought, wow, that was really powerful and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. So my teacher, one of my teachers, said that a teacher will have certain qualities. You can know a true teacher by these qualities. The first one is that he or she will speak what is in your heart. Think about that. The teacher will speak what is in your heart without you having to say anything.
So what might that, I don't necessarily want you to share anything that's overly personal, but what might that look like in action? What might that sound like?
That will look like the teacher comes in and sits down and he gives us sobet. This is a sobet that we're doing now. Sobet means conversation. And the conversation will be exactly on what you have been mulling over or struggling with that day, for instance.
Yep. Synchronicities almost.
Yeah. Very synchronicity-like. The second quality is that when you are with your teacher, you feel lighter because they will pick up and carry a portion of your burden for you for a little while. The key word is for a little while, not all the time, but for a little while. And the third, and in some ways most important, is that a real teacher does not point to themselves. They point to the truth. So when you listen to somebody talk, listen to the message that they give. And if they're talking about me this and I that and how I did this thing and how I'm incredibly cool, yeah, get out your salt cellar and take a bit. If they point away from themselves and towards the truth, then you get towards something real. Do those three qualities make sense?
Mr. Keem says, yeah.
Mustakim also had a question.
He did. I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Yeah. So Mr. Keem says, how does one overcome the pain? I assume it requires a strong connection between teacher and student.
That really does help. But what allows you to overcome the pain is not the teacher. It is the willingness to accept the pain as it is and let it pass through you without grasping it, without identifying with it. The teacher can help you with that because this is where the truth telling comes in. You're sitting there and you're suffering and you're going, oh my God, I'm suffering because of this thing. And the teacher comes in and goes, are you suffering because of the thing or are you suffering because you won't let go of the thing? And you have to go, I guess I am holding on to this. This is incredibly important because we all experience pain. Life is designed to kick us in the ribs at least 3 or 4 times a year. And it's what you do with that. Can you let it pass through you and can you let go of it? And the answer is, yeah, but it's really damn hard. It's really damn hard sometimes because we don't like pain and we don't like letting go, some of us. Show of hands. But we must.
So Mr. Keem asks, what do you think about baraka from the teacher?
I think that baraka is an Arabic word that means blessing. And it is a kind of energy that can be passed from teacher to student. And yes, it is an absolutely real thing. And you don't worry about it. Baraka can be, okay. Have you noticed that sometimes, like most of the times, it's really hard to change? If there's something inside of you, you want to change it, but you just can't do it. Have you ever noticed that? Has that ever happened to you, or am I the only one?
You're the only one.
Okay, I was afraid of that. Damn it.
Mhm.
Everybody's just being nice to me and saying, yeah, we all do that too. So here's the thing. You do not get to do permanent, lasting change unless you're, for lack of a better word, though this word is inadequate, unless your internal energies are above a certain threshold. And most of us never get our energies above that threshold until we start doing really serious work. But a real teacher can lend you a little bit of energy from time to time that can help get you over that hump if they do it at the right time and in the right way. And this goes back to shock points. They find you at a shock point, then they just give you that little push to get you past.
This is, we talk about inertia sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is that push that gets you out of that rut of inertia.
Yeah. You still got to do the work yourself, but you have a little bit more gas for the engine. And it's really important to realize that no matter what, nobody can do the work for you. A teacher says, oh, I can take away your ego for you. Run with one hand on your wallet, because they can't. Only you can deal with your ego. They can help you, but they can't take it away for you. They can't bring you to enlightenment. They can bring you into states. I mean, there's this thing called Shaktipat that some teachers can do that will put you in states of ecstasy. And that's just to give you a glimpse of what's ahead, unless the person is unethical, in which they use it as a form of addiction, because a lot of people get Shaktipat addiction. They just go back to the teacher and back to the teacher for more and more Shaktipat, and they don't change. And Shaktipat is actually pretty much equivalent to Baraka. It's that little boost of energy that you can use to get over the hump. So we have these things. Then you have to ask yourself, how do you know a teacher is right for you? The answer is you really can't. Not at first, which is why people end up getting screwed up with really crazy teachers. But if you know the rules of teaching, it is less likely that this will happen. The things that I've just mentioned to you, if you bear these in mind when you meet different teachers, you will have a matrix by which to go, is this something that I want to get involved with or not? So let me put out, because I know the answer to this already with Cherie and Dave. When you met Lawrence, did he meet all of these criteria or what?
Dave says, yeah.
Yeah.
Cherie says, yeah. And she's unmuting herself.
Yes.
Yep.
So say something about that, Cherie.
When I met Lawrence, there were a lot of people around him that were fawning in nature because he is so charismatic. His stories are engaging, his workshops were fun, and yet he was very clear and very precise about who would be a student and who would be just someone riding on his coattails. So he clearly said things. There was no ambiguity in what he was asking, and his teachings were just so helpful, and I could feel myself shifting and moving in ways that I hadn't been able to do before by myself. And I considered this. I had been sitting at the feet of many different people, and I refused to be initiated because of that whole euphoria thing that happens in workshops and retreats and things. I thought, no, It's afterwards in the daily grind of doing work, of doing your practices. Do you still have that intent and love there? And is that person helping you in that way? That's what Lawrence did for me, because it was afterwards. I didn't see him for long periods. He's someone that it was overseas, or if he was here, he was in another city. But we still had these really strong connections, and I was prepared to be exposed to things. And I think that's part of maturing as well, because I wasn't the young thing that was deciding I understood everything. I didn't. And that was very powerful for me. Lawrence said, you can go under the blowtorch or not. He said, I don't have to do this under the blowtorch. I can do this with love. And I said, I'll have the love path, thanks.
Save the blowtorch for Dave.
Yeah.
Dave and our other friend can have that. No.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think that will be necessary with you. But he also vetted me, and he said, the capacity to listen to what I'm telling you is very important. I don't have the energy to keep repeating myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went, okay, I'm hearing, I'm listening, and I'll do whatever it was necessary. And that practice of recognizing the inertia in the student, and the teacher isn't sucked into that. I had that experience with someone recently, and another teacher was pointing out to me I was too hard on that student. And I said, that person was just having a bad day. But my job is not to be sucked into her inertia. My job is to give her enough poking and enough impetus to make the change that she needs to make. But if I get sucked into that, it's getting sucked into story.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be helpful to her, me, or the rest of the group. And that is because I've taken that example from Lawrence, and watching Lawrence, he never gets sucked into anyone's story. Not at all. No.
Yeah, and that brings up another interesting thing about teachers, which is real teachers know who belong to them. I remember sitting with my teacher for years, and hundreds of people would come to him and go, I want to be your student. And most of the time he would say, you know, you don't belong to me. You're welcome to sit with us, and I will care for you until you find your teacher. But I'm not your teacher. I'm not your sheikh. And he would let them stay for as long as they wanted to, with the understanding that this was not what was going to get them through, and they should continue looking for a teacher, but he would care for them until then. And this is one of the signs of a real teacher. Real teachers don't take everybody who comes. And everybody's different.
Yes.
There is more than one school out there. And there are a number of real teachers in the world, all of whom teach in different ways. One way is better for one person, another way is better for another person. So Lawrence, who I can tell you from first person experience, is a real teacher. He is an awakened being, you know, abiding non-dual awareness. It's right there for anybody to see who knows how to look. He's not going to be good for everybody. Somebody might need somebody more like Adyashanti, another non-dual teacher who is definitely one of the enlightened guys, but I think teaches in a different way.
Mahipal's asking, Lawrence who?
Lawrence is this guy who nobody knows really. He's very, very quiet. He is actually a Zen teacher. I don't know if he even wants his last name used. Cherie?
Yeah, he doesn't mind. That's his
Okay.
name. But the thing is, you're absolutely right. He doesn't take everybody. And he knows his own physical limitations means that he's very selective about who he talks to, who we release his contact details to. He doesn't mind his name. It's more understanding where he is in this moment. And I think Dave and I are just very honored and very blessed to have this open communication with him, that we can contact him anytime, which is blows my mind, because he's just shifting us in ways that we don't even realize until much later. And he'll tell us later. He goes, "Oh, you did this thing," and da 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 da. And you think, "Oh yeah, okay." And it's wonderful, because you can have better discernment with every situation that comes along that gives you a fright or annoyance or pisses you off or whatever, and you know how to deal with it a bit better. I'm not saying you do it first class every time, but it's certainly that way. He is so clear that if someone does contact him and he doesn't want to talk to you, he'll tell you.
Yep.
Yeah. And like I said, he's the real deal. And if you know me, you know that I don't say that about a lot of people. Because for every real teacher, there are 1,000 fake ones, probably more. But yeah, he's somebody I could sit for hours with and not say a word, which is not true of everyone. So anyway, so you have various teachers around the world. One or two of them might be for you. And everyone is going to be different. Some teachers will be very strict and very stern. And you must, the Arabic word is adab, A-D-A-B,
Yep.
adab. And that is the etiquette of being in the situation. It's proper behavior. My teachers were, well, my first teacher had a really strict adab. You had to learn how to be a proper medieval Sufi to hang out with him. And it was a challenge for me, because my personal mindset is like the opposite of that. But I learned to shape myself into somebody who could follow that set of rules without being lost in them or taking myself too terribly seriously or taking him too terribly seriously, which was something that he loved. He knew that whether I kissed his hand or anything like that, that I wasn't buying into it. I was doing the motions, and that any devotion I had to him or good feelings that I had to him were not expressed through the external, but through the internal. And he dug that because I still kept the adab. Now, my last teacher, he's more lax, but still there are lines with him that you would not want to cross. And there's that. Somebody like me, you can get away with huge amounts of, well, you can't get away with disrespect. I will not tolerate that. But you can get away with huge amounts of casual behavior, because I just don't care. Be as casual as you want. Now, Noor, on the other hand, I'm going to blow your secret here a little bit. You definitely do not want to disrespect her or diminish her in any way, which is understandable because she is a small, cute elfin being, and
Yeah.
people mistake the external for the internal sometimes, to
So, yeah,
their detriment.
I have to be a bit firmer in what I expect in terms of adab, uh, to make sure that people understand that I'm someone who is, I don't want to say deserving, but in a world where unfortunately we do come up against a lot of sexism and things like that. It's important for people to bend their minds around the fact that women do enter roles of authority and do deserve respect. So sometimes you have to shape the situation. And adab is one way to create the structure in which to do that.
But, and here's the thing, with a real teacher, you will always know what the adab is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to guess. Phony teachers will keep you guessing. You will, you won't be told, oh, this is appropriate, this is inappropriate, until after you've done the inappropriate thing, and then you get jumped on. And it's not inappropriate like, oh, you picked your nose and wiped it on the wall, right? It's not that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, you did this obscure behavior that is not allowed, but you didn't know that.
That's kind of manipulative. That
It's
gets
very
manipulative.
manipulative.
Yeah.
So you always make sure with a real teacher that you know what the rules are and you abide by those rules or not. But if you choose not to abide by the rules, be pretty sure that you're going to be invited to learn elsewhere.
Yep. Yep. I mean, sometimes that's a lesson in and of itself.
Yeah, I remember when my last teacher, he was traveling around America and he did this for quite a while. And we had to teach people how to be good hosts for him because they didn't understand what was expected. And it was nothing unreasonable or anything like that. It's not like you must have a bowl of M&Ms and there can be no brown M&Ms in the bowl or anything like that. But there was like, okay, these are things that he would be happy if you did them. And so we had to train people who wanted to host him on how to host him. And it was a real thing. And sometimes people would get really weirded out by it. It's like, you want me to what? Yes. We want you, when he comes into the room the first time, stand up. Give him respect. He spent years learning this stuff and he deserves the respect. If you don't want to do that, if you want to remain seated, you can, but it will be noted. Things like that. Me, if you stand up when I come into the room, I'm going to look at you weird.
What, you don't want a bowl of blue M&Ms set out for you?
No, I don't eat sugar. But I wouldn't mind a beautiful flower in a vase near where I'm sitting. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sheikh used to love that too. He never said a word, but if you put flowers near him, he always stopped, smelled them, smiled at them, maybe caressed the petals.
Aw.
Yeah. So these are things that you can use to know whether or not a particular teacher is right for you. There are lots and lots of teachers out there. And the best thing you can do if you are looking for a teacher is to expose yourself to them. The internet is wonderful for that because you can just watch videos of a lot of these cats and get a feel for them. As a matter of fact, probably, I think I'm going to put a list of channels down below of various teachers with the recommendation that you take some time out, watch a few of their videos and see what impressions that you have. I have no particular opinion about most of them. I've stated my opinion on, for instance, Adyashanti, which is, as far as I'm concerned, he's the real deal. I have never seen anything or experienced anything to make me think otherwise. But for the rest of them, I will say that I find each of them interesting for different reasons.
It's a good observational exercise.
So Mustaqim asks, is it important to know the lineage of the teacher? Yes and no. It is in some ways important to know the pedigree, but because somebody is in a lineage doesn't mean that they're a real teacher. Oftentimes when you get broken schools where a teacher dies and has not brought anybody up to the level where they can be a teacher too, you will get the students going, I am the senior student, therefore I will be the teacher. And what they don't realize is that they may be the senior student, but they're a putz and they know nothing. Even though they've sat with the teacher for 25 years, they know two things, jack and shit. Whereas the guy serving tea who has not said boo for the last 10 years, who just brings you the chai and fills your cup and keeps the place clean, might be the real enlightened guy. But people with the wrong kinds of egos are not ever going to see that. So lineage and that sort of thing is not sufficient. My first teacher was appointed to his position in his mid-20s over people who were in their 50s and 60s because he got it that fast. And to the day he died, he couldn't figure out why. He was still like, I don't know. My teacher just said, yeah, go teach these people. And of course, because he was so young, it created divisions in the group. Few people went off and formed their own Sufi orders because they didn't want to take the hand of somebody who was younger than them. So being the senior student doesn't mean you know nothing. Time in service does not mean that you have learned your lesson. Anybody who's ever been involved in martial arts knows this.
I see Mahipal nodding.
Yeah. Yeah, you get these guys who have been the senior student for, years, and they get to a certain point and then they stop and they never go further because they can't get their ego out of the way. One of the things that I learned from one of my martial arts teachers was be humble, efface yourself. And he told me, if you ever go to a school that has belts, make sure you have a white one. That's the only one you're allowed to wear. I don't care if you can kick the ass of everybody in the school. You go in there with a white belt and you be humble and you listen to the people who are your seniors there, which is everybody. And that requires a certain amount of humility that martial artists have trouble developing, including me. I have to admit, I had trouble with that when I was younger because I would go into a school and go, these guys ain't got shit. But fortunately, I remember the wise words of my teacher and the fact that he would kick my ass if he found out that I was being disrespectful, and paid attention and never failed to learn something. So, observe teachers. And I'm going to mention a few. I mentioned Adyashanti. I'm going to put a link to a woman who goes by the name of Gangaji, who is, as far as I know, another enlightened being. I have never heard anything bad about her, never met her personally. Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is a completely awakened being. Bores me to tears. He is definitely not somebody who I could follow in any way, shape, or form, but I hear the truth of his words. Teal Swan, very interesting person, well worth watching. She's very expressive. I like to turn the sound off and just watch her face. You can learn a lot from that. But worth checking out.
And
Sure. What's her name? The blonde girl.
oh God,
Anna
Anna
something.
something or other.
Anna something.
So I just want to reiterate that these are not necessarily people that
we aren't endorsing any of them except for Adya. I endorse Adya. But everybody else, you got to listen to and see what you see. Learn by experiencing and filtering what I have just given you through their words. Does that make sense? It's a really good exercise. Nora can tell you, because I make her do this sometimes.
He really does make me do this.
Let's watch
Sometimes
some enlightened guys.
Just like, but I understand the value in it. I'm learning to increasingly understand the value of that. Yeah. Because, I mean, not only do you learn, if it's someone who genuinely has reached a state of deep knowing, then it's worth watching them because it's fascinating to see that kind of mind and heart at work and see how they convey their ideas and how they connect with those that they're interacting with. And then with someone who may not be there yet, let's say, it's interesting to see how they're engaging with their audience and how they're conveying their ideas and trying to connect. And it's very eye-opening.
Yeah, and this goes back to the Sarmun Wird that we have been working with. You know, you have those who don't know, and then you have those who don't know and know that they don't know. Those are interesting people. And then you have those who don't know yet think that they know. And most of all, you have those who know and know that they are. Those are the most interesting people. And within that Wird, you're going to find every teacher fits into one of these categories. All right, the floor is open for questions and or answers and or complete ruminations or whatever you got. I don't care. Talk to us.
Dave, what are you thinking about, Dave? After you let out that yawn. Rawr.
I don't have those, but I can tell a very long story if you want.
Sure.
That is about all of this.
Go for it.
All right.
I'll crack my knuckles first. So we have been talking about one of my teachers a little bit earlier, and I had a very funny interaction meeting him. It's a bit long. I'll see what I can do. So I was in Canberra, which is a very strange place to grow up. And I was studying at university, and I liked martial arts, and I liked doing strength training, and I liked skipping my lectures at university and drinking beer. And I did a lot of those things.
Yeah, you were a student.
Yeah. So I had fun taking 6 years to do my 3-year degree and training a lot and spending a lot of time each day researching martial arts and strength training and stuff to do with the body on the internet rather than doing my assignments, as one does. And so I did that. And my first teacher, he was a martial artist and bouncer and a history professor. And he was a very cool guy. And for me at that stage of my life, he was the perfect teacher to meet. And it was the coolest thing ever. And I had an amazingly fun time. And then I got kind of sick and I couldn't do the training anymore, and I'll cut that bit out of it. But I had a little changeover period when I was studying with my second teacher, who Cherie also knows, a man called Kit, who teaches stretching. And so I was then again studying the body from a different angle and doing stretching and all of this stuff like that. And Kit would keep talking about meditation. I didn't really care at all. And I wanted to know about the stretching. I think when he kept talking, and then I couldn't do the martial arts anymore. So I decided to try this meditation stuff, and it was okay, had the struggles. And then Kit also had this teacher called Lawrence, who he kept mentioning. And at that point, I couldn't really understand who would teach someone like Kit, having not met many people who are that interesting living in Canberra. Oops, did I say that? Anyway, so I knew about Lawrence, but I didn't know much about anything, and I was happy with my doing the physical training. And anyway, he came over to Australia. And of course, I'm interested to see this person. What is this person who is my teacher's teacher? What is he like? So that was curious. And we did all these weird little fixing ups, and I went on all these cool missions with Kit, setting up the room so it kind of had a curtain and all of this. And I was like, this is interesting. And he turned up, and he was just kind of sitting on this we made just a little platform, just so he could see everyone in the room and everyone could see him, because it was a flat room. And we're sitting there, and Lawrence is sitting there, and he had these little heat packs, which Cherie knows about. And he had his iced tea, and he's sitting there and he's got this little notepad taking notes. He's not really looking up. He's just kind of like this. And I was looking at him. I'm like, what's happening here? Something was different. And I was a little bit suspicious of this. So I put my cushion, I was going to sit behind over near this pillar, at the back, because I hated being in front of people at that stage, at least in my life. And then Kit, being Kit, got this cushion and went and put it right in front of Lawrence and goes, you're sitting there. And I was like, oh man, all right, I'll sit there. So I was sitting there waiting, people coming in as they always did. Then once it got started, there was the little tally. And then the second he started teaching, something completely different happened. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and I was like, that is what I'm looking for. I don't know what the fuck that is, but that is what I'm looking for in my life. And then I sat there, and it was a very I had a trouble at that point in my life getting the monkey mind to quiet down. And it just, Dave went away somewhere, and I just could not think for the life of me for the whole time he was talking. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then he came up to me at the mid break, and I was just like, what's happening? He's like, it's okay, man. And just gave me a little tap. And I was just like, yeah. And then there was a big long period where Lawrence would come out, and I was very, very interested in what he was doing, having had this experience. And he was telling me these things that all just made sense in that way that you do. But I had a big doubt about if he would take me, lowly Dave, as a student. So I put it off for a very, very long time asking him, even though I knew I would, deep inside. I had this big, should I? No, you can't ask him. And then the bit that I knew who was my teacher, on the level of the outer mind, I knew inside he already was, but the bit on the outer mind was so funny. It was in Cherie's studio in Sydney. And it was again at one of the midterm breaks, and people were going about, and I was again placed right next to Lawrence, and he was just sitting there talking to me and someone else. And he was talking about the ways that he would like to die, which you'd think is a morbid topic, but it was so funny. It was so funny. And he was saying his two preferences, one would be to go onto a helicopter trip in Hawaii. And when they were like going over the volcano, to just leap out into the volcano. And the other one was to be carried up to the top of Mount Kailash in India and just be left there to meditate and freeze to death. And I was just, there was something about the way he told the story of it. It was so funny. I was just like, fuck. All right, I'm going to ask him. And then we went down Shri to the Banksia Cafe, and I won't tell you what happened there, but it was one of the better things that's happened in my life. And then that's it. And as much as he is also a complete awake being, he's also, it's the strange paradox of he's very down to earth, extremely approachable, has all the qualities Mushtaq was talking about, always is aware. Like when you go shopping with him, just to like a Woolworths or whatever type of convenience store, it's, you learn more than in all the like books that are written about deep states of blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's very difficult to describe if you haven't had the experience. A few of you I know have had this type of experience, but it's just perfectly ordinary and perfectly like extraordinary at the same exact moment. And so that's how I ended up. I didn't want to do this type of work per se. I just had an extremely lucky selection of teachers in a row, all at exactly the right moment, kind of falling into place. And now I do this strange stuff that I do, and I'm sitting here talking to you guys.
Which shows you
Nice,
that God has a sense of humor.
Yeah, very funny. Particularly funny. All right, I'll stop talking now.
Well, thanks, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good story, though.
I think we all have, when we found our teachers, I think we all have similar story of some kind. And I shared a bit about mine with getting to know Mushtaq and, you know, working up the bravery to ask him to take me on as a student and kind of having to not win you over per se, but just to like show that I was willing to put in the work, I guess. And we definitely felt connected. Yep. And it's such a blessing when that happens because I have met other teachers who weren't necessarily bad teachers, but they, you know, we just did not have that connection. We did not have that sense of sharing a journey per se. And sometimes I would feel that sense that Cherie was talking about, where you go to an event and you have kind of this cathartic or euphoric experience, and you go home and that fades away, and you realize, all right, you know, that was a cool experience, grateful for it, but maybe that's just not the path I need to follow. And all of that is good data to hold on to when you're searching for a teacher.
More questions. This is a chance to get all your questions answered, or not. Yes, Nancy, you look like you're
Do
getting ready
you
to
get
ask.
specific training on how to be a teacher?
Yes, you do get specific training on how to be a teacher in most, I mean, at least in our tradition.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
followed my teacher, my last teacher, around for 12 years. I mostly lived with him unless he was sending me out somewhere. You know, when I came back to his house. And then he would go, "Oh, you should go over there." And then I would come back to his house. So, yeah, you learn in the old way of shadowing your teacher and uh, taking on more and more responsibility as they're willing to give it to you. Um, and listening to their guidance on how to do things.
You
It does
mentioned pedigrees, but Nancy, I'm sorry. I'd love for
uh,
you to continue.
Yeah.
just I was wondering whether part of it is sitting in when they're teaching other people.
Sometimes, but not always.
Okay.
A lot of times when they're teaching other people, it's very, very private.
I was wondering, yeah.
But oftentimes it's sitting in with a group and you learn there. You were going to say, Noor?
I know you touched on the difference between pedigree and lineage earlier, so
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you might like to follow up on that.
Yeah, pedigree is not really a good word either.
Yeah.
So, uh, everybody who is in the tariqah that I am in the Sufi order that I am in, has the same lineage. We all trace ourselves through various teachers back, thousands of years. And it doesn't really mean anything other than we're a part of that school. Uh, the thing that really means something is called ijaza.
Mm-hmm.
Ijaza is permission to teach. And it's different in various different schools. It's like I remember, I like the way Adya talks about it when he talked about when he first started teaching, his teacher invited him to teach, and he's invited other people to teach since then. I like I like that frame for it, the invitation to teach. Um, and that's what you get after you've done the work. And it's not like an acknowledgement of doing the work. It is just saying, he did the work. He can do this.
Or she.
Or she, yeah. Or them.
Yes. Yes. So Mahipal comments, silsila matters though.
Silsila matters in the sense of connection, that you can hold that connection through all of those teachers as a living chain. It matters not at all if you don't have that connection. My favorite story is in the 1920s, Kemal Ataturk outlawed Sufism in Turkey when he was taking it from the Ottoman Empire into the modern Turkish state. So the head of the Mevlevi Tariqa, the head of all the Mevlevi Sufis, the whirling dervishes, who was a direct descendant of Jalaluddin Rumi, stole all the money from the Tariqa and split the country and went to France or England or someplace like that, where he lived off of it for the rest of his life. The silsila did not matter to him because he didn't have the connection, no matter what his birth was, no matter what his uh, pedigree was or anything like that. But having the actual connection, hell yeah, that matters. But that's a matter of cultivation, not of uh, just being able to show the piece of paper that traces you back to the prophet.
Mm. Yep. Yeah. Living connection, not
Yep.
pedigree. Yep.
Yeah. So once upon a time, my teacher made me memorize our silsila all the way back to the prophet. I can't do it anymore because I just don't care in that sense to go, oh, here is the silsila. I know who's important in it to me, which is my teacher and his teacher. Um, and then everybody else. But it's not like it means anything for me to go, oh, here's this person, and then this person taught this person taught this person. So the biggest question of silsila is, are you awake? Do you know the true? Do you know the real? Are you awake to the real? That is the most important question. And if the answer to that is yes, then you are connected all the way back along that chain to the beginning. Not just to the prophet, but all the way back to the first human. That's my theory, anyway. More questions?
I like that very much, what you said then, because I'm thinking on the lines of the way I approach Lawrence and every other teacher that I've sat with, but particularly Lawrence, I asked to be my teacher. And when I also became friends with you, Mushtaq, I never even asked about your lineage. I really didn't need to know in my own heart. That wasn't important to me. It was the way you conducted yourself, how honorable you were, the effect that you had on Dave, which was profound and wonderful. And I thought, I will be prepared to
Don't tell
listen.
Dave.
Don't tell Dave. He's such a big head. He's just hard to deal with it as it is. So that to me was very important. When you look at other students and or other people in that circle and how they conduct themselves, most of the time is very important because we're still human, we still stuff up. But especially with Lawrence, it wasn't, I didn't even know, never asked about his lineage either. And the funny thing was this weekend, Lawrence had asked me, had I Googled your name? And I said, I don't think so. And I said, it never occurred to me to even think about Googling you and finding out your background because that wasn't important.
And the fun thing is you can Google my name and you won't find out about my background.
Well, no. So, it's, you know, before Google, what did we do? How did we actually measure the worth of a teacher or a worth of another human being that you want to keep company with in that vein? It's like you have to look through the lens of your heart versus your mind, and that will tell you, you can feel it, whether the authenticity in that person is genuine. That a lot of people can fake it, but you really have to look at, say, the fruit of the spirit and see how those students are conducting themselves, how compassionate they are, how they respond without a thought that this person needs help, this person needs help, and they do it. And there's no question. Those who don't work through their heart, I don't want to know. If there's all that ego tripping, I'm out. I can already feel it straight away, gone. That's been the most important thing. So we kind of almost have to pretend. If Google or any kind of internet didn't exist, how would you actually vet that this person was the real deal?
If I'm answering, then I have an internet connection and I'm ready to help. What can I do for you?
That's his Google assistant who's like responding to you.
Yeah, you say the
it.
magic word and she starts talking.
You can tell I'm listening or responding when the lights
Hey
on top
Google,
turn
shut
on.
up. So here's the thing. And if you get nothing else out of this talk, get this out of the talk. Behavior is truth. Just that. Behavior is truth. Doesn't matter what a person says, doesn't matter what their lineage is, doesn't matter if they can trace their ancestry all the way back to the prophet, like certain Sayyids in the world. None of that matters. What matters is their behavior. Their adab. How do they act in the world? How do they treat other people? Are they present? Other than that, doesn't make any difference. I could tell you stories about Lawrence from back in the days before he had his awakening. He probably wouldn't care, but I can't see the point because whoever that person was, as delightful as he was back in the day, that's not who you get to talk to. That's an ego that was shed like an old skin. And what matters is, at this moment, what is his behavior? At this moment, what is my behavior? At this moment, what is Noor's behavior? Nothing else. And you'll notice in the criteria that I gave you, all of that had to do with behavior of the teacher. Some of it more esoteric than others, but still, it all had to do with behavior of the teacher. And everybody was silent. Come on, guys, make some noise. I don't even know if you're there.
Mahibal, did you want to say something?
Nope, makes sense to me.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I just saw you unmuted is all.
Oh, you can stay unmuted.
Yeah. Zainab, what's on your mind after our talk tonight? Yeah, it's time to be put on the spot. Woo.
I was actually looking forward for this conversation.
Yeah.
And funny, before today, the meeting today, things were popping up for me to skip the meeting, and yeah, I'm glad that I made it.
Me too.
Us too.
Yep. Thank you so much for being here, Zainab.
And thank you for putting beautiful carpets behind you. That's a treat. For me, I love, Zainab has, for those of you who don't know, the world's most beautiful carpets in her shop. I kid you not. Just the pictures that I see of them are like,
Yeah. Magical carpets.
magical carpets.
Yep. Travis, what are you thinking about?
There it is. Okay. Boy, let's see where to start. You know, in particular, I am recalled to having actually had one of these experiences, you know, where, you know, I was around someone who was a, you know, on a different level than the rest of us. And it was, you know, it was a martial arts context, but this was somebody who had, you know, achieved both of those and was, you know, the closest thing to a warrior saint. I would say that's exactly what he was. He did not speak hardly any English, and the lesson was imparted to me by one of the other teachers. And you know, it's interesting because I don't know whether he was directed to provide that to me or whether he was a much better teacher than I realized at the time. I don't know. But it was interesting because, for one thing, to avoid the ego and defensiveness, it was told to me as a story about another teacher, but it was immediately apparent that it was a lesson for me, you know, that I had the same personality and the same flaw to overcome. And somehow they imparted not just an idea, but like an actual belief that, you know, this was another country, people I've literally never seen them again. But this, over the next year or two, grew and, you know, changed my outlook on people and my, you know, I don't know, the fundamental part of personality, but certainly some expressions of it. You know, very, very interesting, and, you know, kind of the only time I've felt something like that in my life. But, you know, just talking about how the teachers approach things and things, it's, you know, interesting to look back and say, yes, I have seen that at least once in my life. So.
That is very cool.
Thanks, Travis. Awesome. What about you, Omar?
Well, I don't know that I have much to ask or add tonight. I've had a fair amount of stuff stirring this week, so I'm kind of a little bit distracted probably. But yeah, I don't know that I really have much to add here tonight.
That's okay. Thank you. Yeah, take it easy. Mr. Keem, what about you? What are you thinking about?
Not much actually. I think my question already
Yeah.
answered before. So
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Keem.
Well, then that's pretty much it. That's all I got for tonight for the public stuff.
Yeah. Do we have anything we need to add at the end?
If you weren't here for this, you really missed out. How's that?
Perfect.
So let's wave goodbye to everybody. Let me do a little bit of this.
Do the Brady Bunch thing.
Yeah, wave goodbye to everybody.
Yay!
And we will see you all next week.
Yeah.